So tonight I saw the movie Black Phone for the third time. I saw it once by myself. I saw it another time with my son and his friend. And just today, this evening, I saw it with my daughter. I wanted my daughter to see it because I know she she um, loves horror movies, and this is a very well made movie in the horror genre. And having seen it three times, I noticed a couple of things that I want. Having seen it, I mean, for a third time, there were a couple of things that I noticed that I wanted to comment on in a sort of meta way, in a way that does not just refer to the film itself, the meaning, the message, the mise en scène of the film itself, but some things that put some other ideas in my mind regarding what might be getting touched on by this movie, which I think is I think I can say it's my favorite film of the year so far, and having seen it three times, that's that's a pretty good uh, indication that I was into it, that I enjoyed what I was watching, that I found it mesmerizing, and that I really liked it and wanted to come back for more. I also wanted my daughter to see it, like I said, as a true horror aficionado. But what I noticed were, let me just share these things. Now, you all may recall, if you watched my interview with Johnny Monoxide a few days ago, I made reference in that interview to something called the Franklin Scandal. And this is something I've talked about a few times before. This is an event. This is the like an early instance of pedogate. Not the earliest, because it's probably been going on for centuries, but before, well before Pizzagate, and well before Epstein Island, and so forth. There was what was called the Franklin Scandal. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail about what the Franklin Scandal involved, except to say that it seems to have involved the sex trafficking of young boys, by various high-ranking people. Uh, the pimping out of these adolescent boys seems that it was predominantly boys, and that it largely was centered out of Lincoln, Nebraska. And on my old channel, of course, I went to Lincoln and visited one of the notorious sites, and maybe I still have that video somewhere. It got zapped because the whole of my old video channel got zooked, or what do they call it here? Uh, I guess it got Karened. It got Karened here on YouTube. But in that scandal, which was again something that is deeply unsettled me for a long time after I read about it. I think I got a kind of proxy PTSD from it. Um, uh, there are a couple of things that I thought in the movie Black Phone might be references. Uh, for example, one of the One of the boys who it was alleged was taken uh, and and sold into uh, child sex slavery was a newspaper boy by the name of Johnny Gosch. Now, this is a controversial story. I'm not necessarily saying that I think that. I mean, they're all. This is one of there's all kinds of wild speculation about that that this boy supposedly grew up, you know, under these sorts of conditions, and eventually became. Well, the allegations are that he might have been, might have played some kind of role uh, under the George W. Bush White House as a reporter who was who was sort of a mouthpiece for the Bush administration. And but of course there's a lot of this is kind of a wild and crazy one. Some people think it's true. Others are, I mean, it takes a lot. You have to connect a lot of dots, make a lot of dots connect to say that Johnny Gosch grew up to be this person, um, and was I guess raised by those who by the foster system or by those who sold him into child slavery. So the allegation goes. Anyway, there are a couple. There's a reason why I bring this up, and if anybody else has seen Black Phone, maybe you can comment on this. Uh, there's a moment early on when the grabber, who is the villain of the movie, this kidnapper and murderer of young boys. He has the protagonist, the hero of the movie, this 12-year-old named Finney. He has 12 or 13, something like that. Young man. He's kidnapped him and thrown him in his basement. And one time they're talking, and the grabber, played by Ethan Hawke. I was about to say Keanu Reeves for some reason. It's late. Ethan Hawke says to Finney, before knowing his name, he says something like, "That's what I'm telling you, Johnny." I mean, he calls him Johnny, which is a strange moment, because it doesn't seem to fit with the rest of the story. He doesn't know what the boy's name is yet, and there's a scene that happens a little bit later in which he asks him his name, and Finney lies to him about what his name is, in the hope that sort of to throw him off the scent, trying to sort of play mind games back at this sick man who's abducted him, and who's going to be, forcing him to perhaps do ungodly things, and probably going to end up killing him. So, to keep his wits about him, he doesn't tell him his real name. But then the grabber throws him a newspaper where his name is given, and reveals to him that he knew what his name was all along. So why does he call him Johnny? Why does he call him Johnny? And that scene in itself is one thing, but later we find out that among the boys who the grabber kidnapped and murdered, among them was a newspaper boy who was named Billy. So not the newspaper boy was not named Johnny, perhaps that would have been, putting too. But that would have been a bit too on the nose, like people say these days. Um, but nevertheless, the whole idea of a newspaper boy who is abducted, and the mention of this name Johnny just out of the blue, out of nowhere, uh, with no seeming analog, no seeming antecedent, nothing, uh, you know, nothing really telling us why he uses this word, why he uses this name Johnny in this particular case. The combination of the use of the word, of the name Johnny, and the reference to a paper boy who I think is one of the first victims of the grabber. All in all, he has abducted and murdered 5 boys before he abducts the hero of the story, that is Finney. So again, it's little things, and it's not. These are little things that it's easy to just dismiss, but unless you think about it, unless it strikes you in a particular way, and these things did strike me this time around. I don't think I noticed them, or they didn't really make an impression on me the first and second times I saw the movie. But I did note how this movie depicts a child murderer who is has, even though he's not shown to actually commit rape, we don't see him raping any of the boys. There is this something lingering in the air that he gets obviously some kind of sexual enjoyment out of kidnapping specifically boys. He doesn't seem to have any interest whatsoever in girls. So that again lands the whole movie in the milieu of something like what the Franklin scandal was. And that, of course, involved the abduction of boys, the trafficking of sexual trafficking of boys, and allegedly, in some cases, the killing of boys. And again, Johnny Gosch was one was allegedly a boy who was who had a newspaper route, just an innocent 12-year-old boy living life in the heartland, with his newspaper job, who got abducted and thrust into this perverted world of horror. So for me, it's kind of like when I watched, particularly season 1 of True Detective. I do believe that Nick Pizzolatto, the writer of that series, in season 1 and also somewhat in season 3, he made some very, very clear, direct references to various things, various real world things that are considered by some to be in the realm of a conspiracy, but he again pushed these things into the story, in a manner that suggested that I think someone like Pizzolatto is actually on the side of good, and wants to use, and this is just what I suspect, wants to use these shows to help raise consciousness, to get people to notice certain things that are actually out there. Now, I'm not sure what to think of Scott Derrickson, the director of this movie, in that regard. As I've said before, I think he's a talented director. I liked the exorcism of Emily Rose, particularly, um, for reasons I've talked about before. But could he also be someone who's trying to sprinkle in these little hints, these little indications of things, of what to make of this mysterious Johnny comment? And later, the finding out that one of the boys, the first boy, had a newspaper route. I don't know. It just struck me this time around. So, if you've seen Black Phone, or if you are familiar with the Franklin scandal, let me know your thoughts on this subject. Thanks for watching.